Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Dolls of Horror podcast. Today, I have a very special guest with me. I'm so excited to introduce to you Wesley Mann. Wesley, thank you for coming out
Hello, hello.
or staying in,
Um,
rather. We just talked about COVID times makes this so much easier, right?
yeah, totally. We're all equipped now.
Well, it is such an honor to have you here with me. Been a fan since I was just a little thing. I first saw you probably in Back to the Future, right? And then
Part
Tales
two.
from the Crypt, right?
Yeah,
Part two. And then
yeah,
Tales from the Crypt. And then came Adventures in Wonderland. So I
yeah.
already knew who you were.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, that was about 1988. Yeah.
Yeah. So 88, I was 7. I started my horror obsession really early, okay?
Okay, good. I did too. When I was a kid, I had this wonderful book. I was always interested in the Gothic horror pictures,
Yeah.
Frankenstein, Dracula, Wolfman, all of those. I had this great book called Heroes of the Horrors, and it
Mm.
was biographies of Bela Lugosi, Peter Lorre, Vincent Price, and probably the one that I admired most was Lon Chaney Sr.
Mhm.
Lon Chaney Jr. was also in the book, but I was always interested in the characters in horror movies. So
The
Lon Chaney,
Phantom.
yeah, he's the man of 1,000 faces, they called him.
Mhm.
You know, and he made a lot of advances in character makeups over the years too. I mean, he would go to extremes for his makeups, like using the membrane of a boiled egg, on one eye when he was playing Quasimodo. That
Right.
had to have been painful, But
Ugh.
anyway, so yeah,
Well, the pioneers of the makeup that we have now,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
Hey.
Without those, you wouldn't have had the caterpillar makeup.
Exactly, and our Tales from the Crypt makeup as well, right? That was
Yeah,
pretty gnarly that you had to wear. But
yeah.
before we get into all that, let's begin at the beginning. As I said, Wesley Mann, the early years. How did this acting, performing journey begin for you?
Well, I was born a cross-eyed miracle menopausal baby in a little town called Vallejo, California, which is in the North Bay area. And when I was about 10 years old, I saw an advertisement for a magic book, 264 instant magic tricks on TV. It was on probably during the cartoons in the afternoon. And I sent away for that book and I got very interested in magic. So then I decided that I wanted to be like Blackstone Jr. and be a magician in Las Vegas. Yeah. And then I advanced to the Mark Wilson course in magic, which was very involved, textbook with a lot of line drawings and equipment and plans to make large illusions. And so um, by the time I was like 12, I think I joined a summer theater camp under a man named Alex Urban, who subsequently founded the Vallejo Children's Theater, the Napa Children's Theater, and the Sacramento Children's Theater, all of which I worked in after school and on weekends. And so I just and so the magic continued. Like my father helped me build these illusions, and I was doing everything from little birthday parties to school assemblies and Christmas shows for the Moose Lodge. And I had an assistant, and I had rabbits, and I had doves, and I did the whole bloody thing because I was so interested in it as a hobby. And at that time, there was this great show on TV with Bill Bixby called The Magician. We're talking about in the mid 70s now, and so I think it was sometime during high school when I had played in the children's theater. I played Fagin in Oliver. I played Captain Hook in Peter Pan. I played Harold Hill in The Music Man. I'd even played Tevye when I was 14 years old in a crepe hair beard. Sounds crazy, no? And so I was thinking to myself, well, I was about 13, and I was sweeping up after a production of Oliver at Hogan High School Auditorium, and I was asking myself, am I just in this theater thing to meet girls? And I at that time I said, I don't think so. I think it's more than that because I'm really sad that the show is closing
Mhm.
and I won't be able to do it again for another 3 months. And so I went home to my parents around the dinner table, and I said, I think I know what I want to do. And my mother said, "Oh, well, really? Well, what is it?" I said, "No, I'm not going to tell you because I think you're going to laugh at me." And my mother said, "No, no, 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 we really want to know." I said, "I want to be on stage 8 times a week, and I want to make people laugh, and I want to be an actor." And you could hear a pin drop for about 3 or 4 seconds, and then she said, "Oh, okay. But you still want to go to a 4-year college so you can learn to teach and have something to fall back on, right?" And at that point, I said to my mother, um, "If I have something to fall back on, I will."
So smart.
Yeah, kind of beyond my years. I don't know what in the universe, funneled down into my 13-year-old brain at that time, but it was true, and it's remained true throughout the career. I'm never as happy as when I'm working. Um, so that was the origin story of me and my training. I I after then the next few years through my high school years, I did my first summer stock job at the Post Playhouse, Fort Robinson, Nebraska, when I was 17 years old. Had to get special permission from the principal of St. Patrick's High School, and he was not good about it. Made my mother cry. I mean, I was 17 years old, a junior in high school, and I was getting college credit to go do theater in the summertime. And well, he was removed some years later for other reasons. Anyway, so I did that and grew as a human being and as an artist that summer because we were doing absurd melodramas. I was also doing my magic act as an oleo to one of the short melodramas. There were like one acts.
Yeah.
My magic act with the birds and stuff, and had a wonderful girlfriend, and it was a great summer. I was playing Lord Fancourt Babberley in Charlie's Aunt, which was a blast. And then I went home to finish high school and live at home.
Mhm.
When I was 17 and living with college students in the same house, and the drinking age in Nebraska was 19 at the time. So I was getting away with it for much of the summer. And so I came back, and then I started to think about serious training. I was working as after high school. I graduated high school in '81, and happiest day of my life. And then I spun my wheels in junior college for a couple of years, all the time doing community theater and college theater. And then I think it was I was I went back to the Post Playhouse. In 1981, I did musical theater in Stockton, California. And then after that, I went back to the Post Playhouse. And the Post Playhouse was connected to Chadron State College in Chadron, Nebraska. And they offered me a fine arts scholarship. So I went there for a semester. And the program was so small. I did what I do. I did 2 plays that semester. I took private voice, private piano, chorus. Um, there, it was one class was basically shop. It was learning the technical practicum of doing theater,
Mhm.
which I had already been doing over the summers. And the program was so small that I was in the Petrified Forest playing Gramps, playing a 70-year-old guy at the age of 22. And a play called The Second Lady, which was a Jack Sharkey comedy about, oh my goodness, the first female president. Um, so, so it did those 2 plays, and they inducted me to Alpha Psi Omega on Wednesday night. I went through the initiation ceremony, and then on Thursday night, they elected me president. And then on Friday night, I hosted the benefit or the annual banquet, and it was an awards banquet, and I received awards of best newcomer, best lead, and best supporting actor. And at that point, it was January, and the snow was piling up outside my window, and I thought, I think I need a little bit bigger fishbowl. So it was then that I made steps to go to the Pacific Conservatory of the Performing Arts in Santa Maria, California. That's a program that my mentor of those 3 children's theaters recommended because he had done the research and gone down there because he'd had other students, a lighting designer, for example, who was working down there. And in those days, in the summer program, they did 12 shows in 2 theaters in Solvang and Santa Maria in Rep. So it was a theater boot camp. And in '84, I was accepted into the program and had wonderful teachers, some whom are still my friends. And I ate, slept, and drank theater from Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. till the evening 11 p.m. 6 days a week, Tuesday through Sunday. I just lived for it. I was a sponge. I drank everything up. I was so happy. So I went through the conservatory program, accepted into the second year, and then the third year was if they thought you were good enough for the main stage, they would keep you, and you'd earn points to your card and your union card, that is, and you got paid a stipend. It was small, but looking back, I was so fortunate because it was through a state community college, so my tuition was $50 a semester. I think that really helped my parents make the decision to support me. Rather than going to ACT, like my wife went to ACT through the master's program, and when she got out, she had $60,000 in student debt. I did not. The only drawback of BCPA was that you were working so constantly, you were unable to hold down a job, even waiting tables or anything like that. So I had this little studio apartment. Get this, for $300 a month, and my parents allowed me like $400 or $500 a month. I think that was my allowance. So the third week of the month, I would call them, Mom, I'm running out of money. I think I need more. I'm already paying $300 a month in rent. My mother said, do you have a drug problem? I said, no, I'm eating baked potatoes every day. I mean, come on. So anyway, when they came to see the shows, they were very proud of me, and they supported my career the whole time. So let's fast forward to 1987. It's summertime, and I'm playing Puck in A Midsummer Night's Dream in Solvang under the stars. It's fantastic. The show is inspired by Dr. Seuss. Brilliant design, scenic design by Tom Butterwitz, and a wonderful costume designer at that time named Beaver Bauer. Let's just say I was adorable. Okay. I was 24. So that show was picked up by an independent producer and brought to Los Angeles, to what was then the Westwood Playhouse, is now the Geffen Playhouse, and it's over in Westwood. We ran there for 6 weeks, and that's how I got my first agent, Writers and Artists. And then along about January of 1987 or 88. I guess it was January of 88. I got my first gig on Golden Girls as a ticket taker in a bus station in St. Olaf.
It's funny that you mentioned Alex Urban because my friend went to high school in Napa in the early 90s, and that was her English teacher.
Oh my God. Did you go to Justin Sienna?
No, well, she did.
She did. Yeah.
She was older than me. So yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't
Alex,
know, like 90, 1990, 91, stuff like that?
yeah, I owe a great deal to Alex. He was my mentor, and an interesting connection about him. Another person who was in Napa Children's Theater. His name's Jeffrey Brooks. Um, Alex passed away some years ago,
Yeah, like
and
25 or something.
I think so.
Yeah.
And I went to his memorial service, and there were a few other people that I had known from back in the day. David Leonard being one. He was the lighting designer at PCPA, and this guy walks up behind me and says, "Hi, I don't know if you remember me, but I was in Napa Children's Theater with you, and when I saw you play Fagin, I I decided that's what I wanted to do with my life. My name is Jeffrey Brooks, and I was a script supervisor on Friends for 6 years." And I said, "Oh my God, you're Brooks." Brooks. Alex used to say, "Yes, Brooks. What is it?" Because Jeffrey Brooks was the kid. I'm sure you're familiar with this type of child who waits until it's time to go home to ask questions. Because what he really wanted was private time with Alex. And oftentimes, Alex was my ride home from Napa. I
Mhm.
still lived in Vallejo at the time. Um, and so we had this meeting, and he said, "I have this little theater, and I'd love for you to come, teach some classes with me." I said, "Yeah, I'd love to teach an improv class with your students or do a conservatory hour, whatever you like." And now Jeffrey is my manager, and he's part of a company called Red Rock Entertainment. And so we've been working together for a few years now, and I just had a meeting with him last Tuesday. And so, yeah, the Alex connection for both he and I,
Mhm.
we have a very strong connection there, and we speak the same language. Alex had this on his sports cars, which I always coveted. He had this great 300 ZX. A special edition. It was black with gold trim and a T-top and leather. Oh my God! Is this what you can do if you're in the arts? Is what I was thinking. But he was also a published author, and
Yeah,
had 2 master's degrees. And anyway,
right.
you know how brilliant he was.
Yeah.
But his license plate was AHW, Alex Harry Urban. And so Jeffrey and I both speak the language of Ahu. So, anytime we text each other, Ahu would be proud of you, etc.
Yeah.
And it's something that I find is the friends you make in the theater are friends for
Mhm.
life. There's no people like show people,
It's
like no
true.
people I know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about a few of my favorite projects. Okay.
Okay.
Can we begin, since this is a horror podcast first and foremost, and though I always go off on theater tangents. Of course, Tales from the Crypt, sir.
Sure. Great. I loved doing that week of work with Catherine O'Hara,
Mhm.
who had given birth like 2 weeks prior.
Are you kidding?
I am not kidding.
She looked amazing.
That's what my friend Joe Mahar told me. Joe Mahar, with whom I had worked in my stepmother's in
Yep.
A.
And played the judge in that.
Yes, exactly.
Judges.
Yes, he loved saying that snotty license plate. Joe was a great guy too. He gave me such great advice. The old actor's adage, when you're working on a picture, is never stand when you can sit, never sit when you can lie down, never just lie down when you can sleep. Because it's all about waiting. And also, he was from Northern Ireland, so he was a very
Mhm.
sophisticated cat. He said, "Now, Wesley, I want you to listen to me. Always wear your own shoes if they let you."
Yeah.
And he's so right. You as a dancer would know that.
Yeah.
You just there's no substitute for wearing your own shoes. So I do that whenever I can. Catherine O'Hara was fantastic, down to earth, a regular gal. I've admired her ever since. And the only sort of bugaboo the whole week was the scene, I'm sure you'll remember it, when I turned my head and said, "They cut off my toe."
Yes.
Well, that wasn't makeup. That was very early CGI. And the thing about it is that I had to turn absolutely level because they were only going to work on this much of the frame, right?
Mhm, mhm.
So if I went up or down, that ruined the take. And I think it took 15, 16 takes for them to set camera, have me do it right. And Catherine sat there through the whole thing. It was just, okay, whatever you need, whatever you need, whatever
Oh,
you need.
wow.
And I will tell you that there have been very few shows that I've worked on where people have been grateful afterward. I mean, when I worked on Amen, Sherman Hemsley sent me a Christmas card. Very nice. But this show, um, they sent me a letter thanking me for my work on Tales from the Crypt. Who does that? Nobody does that anymore. So it was from top to bottom. It was a really, really fun week because I had known Joe. So I had somebody to hang out with on set. Catherine O'Hara was fantastic. And I got to wear a seersucker suit too. So
Okay, everyone knows you obviously from Back to the Future. How did
part
that come about? Yes, part 2, sorry.
two.
Yes.
Well,
I think of in my brain, part 1 and part 2 go together. I see them as one movie in
yeah,
my head.
yeah. And I think the way the history goes is that they made one and then they were going to make 2 and 3 as one picture.
Mhm.
And Zemeckis got into it and said, this is 2 pictures.
And
This is
by the way,
2.
Zemeckis was in charge of Tales from the Crypt.
Oh, that's right.
Uh-huh,
Maybe that's what the link was.
uh-huh.
You know,
I'm just
um,
saying,
yeah, maybe I had an in without even knowing it. You
right?
never know in this business, especially when you're 24 or 25 years old. You're just like, ooh,
I know.
squirrel. Yeah. So Back to the Future 2. Okay. I get a call from writers and artists. They want to see you for Back to the Future 2. Pick up your sides at the guard gate. Back then, we didn't have. This prior to fax machines, so really prior to email. So anytime I had an audition, I was living in Los Feliz at the time. It was on the east side of Los Angeles. I would have to go all the way to Westwood to the guard gate of where my agency was and pick up a hard copy of what I was going to do the next day. So that was 45 minutes each way. And that became difficult when you had a whole screenplay to read the night before.
Mhm.
So anyway, that's not what's very interesting. So I read the script and it was for a teenage kid. So I went in with some horizontal striped shirt and I tried to look younger than I was because I think I was 24 at the time. Um, and I read this copy, which is not in the movie. It was just a part uh, where I'm talking to McFly about something. It was like, as I recall, it might have been in under 5
Mhm.
lines. But when I went in, I got on the Universal lot, and they're like, "You have to go to Imagine Entertainment." Okay, well, this is also before cell phones, so I couldn't find my way there. And I was wandering around Universal, and I see this log cabin that's like sequestered in a bunch of palm trees, and oh, it matches the address. And the security guy comes out and says, "Can I help you?" I said, "Yeah, I'm supposed to read for Back to the Future too." "Oh, yes, right this way, sir." "Yeah, sir." I'm a 24-year-old kid. Anyway, I'm led into this conference room, which is a log cabin, and it's enormous. The conference table is about 12, 14 feet long. It's very intimidating. And there's just a casting director, a camera at the end, and a chair for me to sit in. And I did my copy. And then I think it was a week or two later, they called and said, "So you booked this Back to the Future 2, and you need to be at Whittier High School at 4 o'clock on such and such a day." And so I went in and I was there. Of course, I was a half hour early um, at Whittier High School, and then I sat around and I waited. And then about 4 o'clock, they put me through the works. The guy in the hair and makeup chair said, "Wow, you've got great hair for this period. That's wonderful. Go over there and pick out a suit." Okay. That's what you do with extras. I didn't know anything about being a principal. So I chose that sort of orange striped suit. It was fantastic. I wish I still had it. I couldn't wear it anymore, but I wish I still had it. Um, and then I went to my trailer and I followed Joe Mahar's advice, and I sat and then I laid down. I wasn't able to sleep because I was too excited.
Mhm.
I think I drank too much Diet Coke, so I was like buzzed. And then I waited, and then midnight came, and then we broke for lunch, and Leah Thompson sat at the table with all the extras and answered all of their questions. She's a very sweet lady. And then it became 1 o'clock, then 2 o'clock, then 3 o'clock, then 4 o'clock. The sun is just about to rise. Okay, Wesley, we're ready for you. And we did the first part of it. What's CPR? Um, Michael was not in a great mood that evening, but I later had heard that he was quitting smoking at the time. And after you watch his documentary, you can completely understand why he might have been a little short-tempered during that time in his career. So it's a fascinating documentary, by the way. And so we did that piece, and then okay, we're going to just sing along, Wesley. Call him Bob. Bob Zemeckis, since I guess I've known him 40 years. I've never seen him since,
And
but
worked on at least 2 of his things.
yeah, right. Yes, apparently. Um, and loved everything he's done, from Forrest Gump to Castaway. Oh my God. Anyway, so he says, Wesley, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to let the camera roll. Just try not to overlap me when you speak. At that time, we were using Panaflex cameras, which was actual film. And each camera had a magazine of 11 minutes in it. So they changed film, changed magazines, got the battery ready. Roll, speed, marker, action. Hey, did you just take that guy's wallet? I think he took his wallet. Okay, good, Wes. Now turn away, turn back to me, and say it. Good. Let's do it one more time. Away, back. Now do it 2 more times. I think he stole his wallet. Did you just take that guy's wallet? I think he took his wallet. Cut. That's a wrap on Wesley Mann. Yay. Great. So I waited for 12 hours to work for roughly 20 minutes. And then I was just starting to have fun. And then it was, is that all there is?
Isn't that what a lot of film making is, hurry up and wait,
A lot,
right?
largely, yes, yeah. That the adage is, you act for free and you get paid to wait. Uh,
Right.
because it's the hardest part.
Yeah.
Over the years, I've learned how to, pass the time a little easier. We can do that now with Wi-Fi, and I recently worked on Palm Royale last week, and I was able to watch a Dodger game on my phone while I was waiting around. Because they usually wait to shoot me last in the day. So it's a whole lot easier now with cell phones and all that stuff. So yeah, that's pretty much the Back to the Future thing. And then people all over the country started to call me and say, I stood up in the theater. I said, that's my friend Wes, which was very cool. It's not the same as getting a curtain call for a theater piece, but it's very sweet. It's very nice. It's starting to happen to me where I've forgotten about some of the projects that I've done. And I was like, oh, yeah, Helen Hunt. I worked a day with her on Soul Surfer. Or, I just saw Dennis Quaid this morning. He was on Soul Surfer too. Really nice guy. And, he's promoting like 2 new projects. So I've rubbed elbows with a lot of famous people. It may be time for these stories that I tell in these interviews to make their way into a publication. I don't know. It seems a little presumptuous at 62 to write a memoir.
Not even. If not now, when? Peter was in the process of writing his.
Was he? Yeah.
And
And
now it's up to us to continue the legacy and try to piece it together.
yeah, and you know, I teach a little bit too, and it's a different age now of young actors coming up. Uh, I think largely because of cell phones and the pandemic, interpersonal relationships are far more strained and more difficult. Um, what they're really interested in is being an influencer and making money rather than learning the craft that I was fascinated by. I mean, my background in magic contributed to my acting career. The art of misdirection and reveal, uh, really important, and sometimes it's hard to teach that because the attention span is like squirrel, you know, because they're getting a dopamine rush every few seconds on Instagram and TikTok, etc. So so my point is that I'm kind of a dinosaur. I'm one of the dying breed that was classically trained in American theater standard dialect, playing different people from around the world, um, doing cross gender roles, all that stuff. I mean, I've played multiple roles frequently in Shakespeare plays. I did,
Mhm.
11 seasons with the Hudson Valley Shakespeare Festival, and I've done 17 of Shakespeare's plays thus far. But I digress. What else do you want to know about?
But I gotta say, if it wasn't for dinosaurs like you, your words, um, untrained people like me wouldn't know what the hell to do because
Yeah.
I can never afford the training that you have. So when I started theater, well, I came about theater in a very roundabout way through sports. I was a gymnast when I was young, and I was terrible. I was too scared to be a gymnast, like,
Yeah.
was not good. But then I moved into figure skating,
Ah.
which pushed me into dancing,
Mhm.
which pushed me into musical theater
Mhm.
around all these pros, right? And, all I could do was just sit in the background and learn by watching everybody there.
It's kind of the best way to learn. You know,
Yeah.
a big part of my conservatory training was watching professionals in rehearsal.
Yes, exactly, and I loved it, and
Yeah.
I was just always hanging around, and
Mhm.
as I said, I'm still friends with some of those people today. It's like these relationships you've built, and they taught me everything.
Yeah.
They taught me Gilbert and Sullivan, they taught me a patter song, they taught me everything just by being nosy. Well, how do you do that? That's all I want to know, how do you do that,
Yes, exactly right. How do you do
right?
that?
So
Yeah.
we need dinosaurs like you to help us out,
Okay.
okay?
I'll
Because some of us can't afford the school.
I have one student right now, and she reminds me of me. She's 16 years old, and she's just gotten accepted to 2 different summer programs for musical theater. She's gonna audition for a role in her high school. She's down in San Diego. Um, 2 different roles. Yesterday, we were working on Gwendolyn from Importance of Being Earnest, and I said, "Have you ever seen this play or read
Mhm.
this?" No. What about Pirates of Penzance? You ever
Oh,
seen
yeah.
that? And she's like, "What?" Yeah. Okay. All right. I want you to do some research. These are available. There's so much that's available now that
I know.
wasn't when we were growing up. Um, and so um, I learned from Cullum Meaney, from Barbara Dowling, from Bernard Cates, who worked in the movies. I worked with Peter Donat at ACT and observed William Patterson and Sidney Walker and the company of actors while I was there because I did 2 plays there.
Mhm.
Um, and it's immeasurable what you learn. I mean, after you get your conservatory training, um, every job you do, you learn, which gives you juice too.
Mhm.
I never knew that, or I'd thought about that. Every play you do intense research um, to build your character, given circumstances, etc. So that's where the fun is for me. Um, and we work so hard in the theater. When you get to do camera work, it's kind of luxurious because
Yeah.
you're doing little bits at a time. there's not a big responsibility to learn lines, except in the moment. Um, but my heroes are Peter O'Toole and
Mhm.
now Anthony Hopkins is
Mhm.
kind of the premier. Um, Patrick Stewart. I mean, Oliver Reed in Gladiator was fantastic. It was the last thing he did, and you could tell that he was on his way out. His bloodshot eyes, and he looked
Mhm.
really ruddy, and he died with a pint in his hand, as I understand. Um, but Richard Harris, another one. But
Mhm.
so those were and still are my heroes, which is why I'm such a junkie for Turner Classic Movies.
Yeah. Okay, on to some more music. Adventures in Wonderland, of course.
Yeah,
Now, I got to tell you, this when we were doing weekly episodes reviewing horror movies, Adventures in Wonderland came up constantly for me
really.
because there was some crazy connections with that show. But before the internet came about and YouTube and everything, I thought this show was a fever dream along with a few other shows I loved because no one has ever heard of these shows at that
Huh.
time. And I mean, I realize now that it's because most of my friends were theater friends and they were 10 to 20 years older than me,
Hmm.
or nowadays younger people who are at least 10 years younger than me or more. And so that everyone just missed that demographic when it was on when I was watching it, and along with a few other shows, all puppet shows. There was one called Today Special I loved. There was one called Under the Umbrella Tree and The
Oh
Elephant Show, right?
yeah,
And no one remembered any of these shows, and I'm like, "Did I make all this up?"
yeah.
Like, is am I crazy? Because no one knows any of my favorite shows.
Yeah,
And then the internet happened, and then YouTube happened, and then I'm like, "Oh, thank God. I'm not crazy." And then
yeah.
IMDb happened, and I
And
was like,
then Disney Plus happened, and there we are.
yeah, but so so first of all, I always thought that I made this show up in my head, even though I know logically I didn't, because I was very well aware of many of the performers in that show, either before or I continued to follow them after, right? Like I knew you before.
Hmm.
I continued to follow John Hoffman after and what he did, right?
Oh,
Armelia, of course. I mean, my grandma played me her Ain't Misbehavin', right, growing up.
sure,
And so I knew logically I didn't make this up. I couldn't have. I know too much.
yeah,
But then we start recording these episodes and the Kyoto brothers
hmm.
did Killer Clowns from Outer Space
Oh, right, yeah,
and some other horror that we all know and love.
yeah,
And so Adventures in Wonderland has that horror connection in it
yeah.
at some point, and it's so amazing. First off, can we please talk about how that came into your life?
Oh, yeah, okay. Had an audition for the Mad Hatter. Um, no, and I think they used copy from the Disney movie. So the Mad Hatter was no room, no room, no room. There's no room at the table. And I went in a jacket with a purple pocket square, and um, uh, I auditioned, and then they called me back a couple weeks later, and then they called me back a couple weeks after that to do a screen test and put a head on me, the green head, which was going to be a makeup test. They didn't tell me that I got it yet, but they said so they actually want you for the caterpillar, not the Mad Hatter, and
Was
I
the
was
giveaway when they gave you a green head? And you're
yeah,
like, "Wait,
that could have been it.
wait."
I think that might have done it. Um,
Or did you know before then?
I think I might have known that. They actually sent me a sketch of what I might look like, a cartoon sketch, and I have it somewhere. Um, and then didn't hear anything for 3 months, and then it was 6 months, and then they put us all on a retainer because it kept getting pushed and pushed. I didn't know if they were having trouble casting it or deciding where they were gonna do it, but eventually, we got the go ahead, and it was going to be in Orlando at the MGM Studios, now gone. The MGM Studios on the Disney Park in Orlando. The studio is designed with a glass wall on one side so that tourists could walk by and watch us filming the show. We had 4 cameras at that time. One was on a big Zeus crane, a handheld, and then 2 that were on stands. So it was like a 4-camera show, but there was no audience. And since my makeup was intense and it took 3 people to be me, 2 of the Kyoto brothers were in the suit with me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they
Which
were on.
ones?
They were on little. John Lovelady was one, but they were inside the suit, and they were watching at the time the state of the art Sony Watchmans, so that they could watch my hand gestures and mimic them, which is why all 3 sets of hands, were working. I spent so much time not working in Orlando that I spent time in the makeup room, naturally. And I learned how to ventilate hair pieces. I made some eyebrows for the Mad Hatter, wig fronts, etc., because that helped me kill the time. And I was photography was a sort of a hobby at that time too. I could just kick myself because I hadn't taken up the game of golf at that point. I could have been playing golf like 3 days a week down there because anyway, the character is so involved. It takes 3 people to be me. The makeup takes 3 hours. They would shoot me out in like 1 or 2 days a week. So table read on Monday. I might work Wednesday and Friday or something like that. We all had fun because I think for all of us, it was, well, not all of us, but most of us youngsters, it was the first regular gig we had. Mm-hmm. It was the first chance to keep the wolf away from the door for a while. But as far as my character, like personal appearances were never going to happen. Mm-hmm. Like some of the cast got to go to DC and meet Bill and Hillary. Yeah. And so I was left out of a lot of that. Mm-hmm. My friend Richard Coleman was left out of it too. He was the Cheshire Cat because, you give the game away if you show the puppeteers. I had really good times with Gary Halverson directing. We had a lot of inside jokes. I was in the booth usually 1 day a week narrating the clay animation cartoons. That reminds me of a story. Yeah. So, so we were there for, I don't know, maybe 9 months or so. And then we got a pickup and we were able to move everything to Los Angeles, to the Radford Studios, which is CBS Radford, which is much closer and much easier. And I think we all bought new cars.
In Florida or in LA?
In LA, because it's a nightmare to transport a car, in case you don't know. So, yeah, I tried to sell my car in Florida and was unsuccessful. So I think if I look back on it now, I would have driven home. But I think I transported the car and paid that way too. And then traded my car in for a car that I wanted when I got back, because I actually had some savings as an actor. Crazy. And then ultimately we did 100 shows, 99 of which are out there. The 100th show had O.J. Simpson in it, so Disney pulled that one.
I have that book, by the way.
Do you?
I do.
Is it White Rabbits Can't Jump? Is that what it is? Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Yep.
All right.
I found it at a thrift store years ago, and I'm like,
that's going to be worth something.
I gotta have it. It probably is, but that's okay because it's not going anywhere.
Okay.
Collectors don't sell.
Yeah. We did 2 episodes a week. Each episode had 4 musical numbers in them. I generally was out of the musical numbers. Maybe I did one or two because I had the clay animation cartoons.
Mhm.
Um, and when Terry Garr came on to guest, I think she was playing the Duchess.
Mhm.
She said to Patrick Richwood, she's like, "You guys do this every week?" Oh my god! He's like, "Yes, yes, yes, we do." Um, so she was pretty amazed at the workload
Yeah.
of what, and the regular cast worked a lot more hours than I did. Uh, Reese and John were kind of the centerpiece, and Armelia always had a number. And uh, so anyway,
The Tweedles usually had a number as well at some point.
yeah, and it was always really physical too. I'm still good friends with Rob, and
Oh.
I see Harry periodically.
Absolutely, absolutely amazing. I love it so much. So tell me, what was some of the challenges of working under heavy prosthetics like that as an actor developing that character?
It's just heat. You know, um, the caterpillar head um, was a it was a head that slipped on over my head, and the neck, was all foam rubber.
Mhm.
And then so there was an opening like this, and Ron Wild made all these appliances. There was a forehead that came down to just below my brow line, so that's where that joint was hidden, was in my eyes. So there was a flat piece for my forehead, and there was I think there were jowls as well, and those were all made out of foam latex and applied with a surgical adhesive, which was state of the art at the time. And then that was covered with what was called Pax paint. It was latex that also had pigment in it. So it's rubber on rubber on rubber. So your pores have nowhere to go.
Hmm.
You're sweating underneath the the makeup. So one of the concessions they made was for characters like myself and the White Rabbit, who had big costumes, to wear cool suits. Cool suits are something that they developed for astronauts and have been used in the Disney parks before. Basically, it's a vest with a aquarium tubing running back and forth in it, and then you hook yourself up to a cooler that has ice water in it. It has a pump, so it pumps cold water through this vest, and it brings your core temperature down. Those were a godsend, especially for Patrick, because he worked a lot of long hours.
And he was active, like
Very
running
active. Yeah,
around, and you were sitting there, but he was out there.
yeah, yeah. And in my case, sitting around was the best thing I could do.
Yeah.
You know, because
Just like your friend told you.
yeah,
Sit.
exactly. Sit, don't sweat, sit. Because the studio lights were warm enough, and
Of
being in
course.
Florida, it was plenty warm, and Southern
Mhm.
California is warm too.
Yeah.
So that was the only real thing about it. I mean, I always loved putting on a mask because it does so much for you.
Mhm.
Many years ago, I'll try to make this a brief story, but I was in a production of Richard II. It was my very first Shakespearean role, and I played the role of the gardener. He has one scene, and I couldn't really get it. This is when I was at PCPA, and uh, the director just said to me, "It sounds like you're reciting lines to me. Can you just do something?" I said, "Well, let me impersonate Barney Cates." And then the director made the announcement in the rehearsal, "Wes is going to do his Barney Cates impersonation. Everybody just be cool." And I was like, "Oh, Christ, man, why did you do that to me?" So I did that, and felt like I failed miserably. And then I went to the wardrobe designer immediately after rehearsal. I said, um, Lou, I need some age. I need some weight. I need to look and feel older.
Mhm.
And he's like, "Okay, I've got this old hoppy coat that I'm going to put you in." It was an Asian inspired design. "And we're going to put a skull cap on you with gray hair coming down here." And I went to my makeup kit and I did a 3-color stipple makeup with age lines and everything like that. We get to a preview. I do the scene, and the director came back to me and said, wow, that was really good. All you needed was a mask. And been my key ever since my training. That's one little nugget of training that has gone with me. And I have a makeup kit that, I need a separate table for because I've got mustaches and spirit gum and, all manner of colors, shapes, sizes. It's always helped me to put on a mask to get into the character and the wardrobe too. That's even if you're playing women, if you're playing age, any of that. Mark Corson's book called Stage Makeup is the Bible, for
Mhm.
all of that stuff. And their science just keeps going. I recently played, don't tell anybody, but an extra character on Palm Royale, and it required facial hair. And uh, there's a new adhesive called Skin Ballsy, I think is what it's called, and it's really comfortable, and
Oh.
it it comes off with alcohol. The caterpillar's makeup took about an hour and a half to take off because the pieces were applied with surgical adhesive. So then you needed an antidote to that, which was called Detachol, which was almost like acetone. I
Mm.
mean, caustic to your skin. So you really got
Mhm.
to take care of your skin. Um, but I've just always done it. I've always been a character man. I've always been playing old. I've played old men since I was 14 years old. So I'm used to it, and I'm really patient with it. I mean, the original design for the caterpillar required that I do a life mask. Don't know if you know what that
Mhm.
is, but yeah, I mean, they cover your face with gel, cover your hair with a stocking, and then they put dental alginate all over your head. And they try to leave holes in your nose so that you can breathe while it sets up. And that's about 20 minutes of being really claustrophobic. So, but that's how he was able to build the pieces that fit perfectly to
Mhm.
my face. So,
How was the costume, like, was it open in the back?
yes. So I walked around with the head on,
Mhm.
and then I bet they opened up the back and I stepped into the costume and there was a piece of PVC pipe for me to lean my hands on
Mhm.
and my arms on, and my hands came through the holes. There was one guy sitting cross-legged on the floor. Then John Lovelady was on a little stool behind him, and then I was on top of John, whose head was about here. So it was pretty involved, and that's why the caterpillar didn't move hardly at all. I
So
mean, so
who were the feet? Was it the bottom guy or John?
it was the bottom guy. So his legs
Yeah.
came out the front. So, um, yeah, I mean, I think one time we kinda clowned about, the caterpillar moving, and I think I did something like this. Sort of the
So
mu mu
what were you sitting on and what was John sitting on?
I wasn't sitting, I was standing
You were
and leaning.
standing, okay.
Yeah, which was not great on my lower back.
I was gonna say,
Yeah. I
yeah,
think I think John was, sitting on, like a half high, 4-foot stool,
yeah,
you know? There
yeah,
wasn't a there wasn't a lot of accounting for comfort. But
right.
the guy on the bottom, I think he was sitting on an, one of those yoga,
Mhm.
pads, you know?
Did they at least give you, like, a chiropractic budget?
No,
No? Oh,
no.
that's so wrong. It's so
I
wrong.
know, I know. You as a dentist know how wrong that is. But
So wrong. Yeah,
this
I
is Disney. No.
I mean, my old bones can't even imagine getting out of that going, "Oh,"
Oh,
but
I know. I
I
can relate. I gave my left knee to the Hudson Valley Shakespeare Festival,
yes.
and I need a new one because I'm bone on bone in there. Tore the
Yes.
meniscus twice, so that's gonna happen this year, and then I'll be in the pink again.
Well, there you go. Yeah, Peter would always say, too many pratfalls in the '70s.
Yeah.
Too many pratfalls, man.
Yeah. Yeah, I was able to speak with Bill Irwin shortly after, Full Moon, when it came to LA, and I said, "Are you" I asked if he was teaching any workshops or anything. He's like, "No, no, no." I said, "Well, how are you? How's the
Mhm.
career?" He's like, "Well, it's getting a little tough on my body to continue." He's a real physical comedian, you know. So
Yeah.
yeah. Oh,
But okay, so you talked about you're like, well, maybe I'll write a memoir or maybe not. If you were to write a memoir, what would it be called?
um, Stephen Colbert has this Colbert questionnaire, and he says, "What would you describe the rest of your life in 5 words?" And years ago, I was part of a documentary of our production of Twelfth Night at Hudson Valley Shakespeare Festival, and the last thing I say in the documentary is, oh, the question was, how do you prepare to go on stage, or what do you think right before you go on stage?
Mhm.
And I said, let's just see how this goes, or let's see how this goes. So that would be the 5 words. I've thought about many other titles, believe me. Yeah, I'm that guy, uh,
Mhm.
because nobody really knows my name, but they're like, "Oh, that guy." I'm one of those guys, that guy, because after 37 years, I'm kind of all over the internet.
Mhm.
All the sitcoms that I worked on, from Golden Girls to Murphy Brown to
Yeah.
Full House to
Yeah.
Home Improvement, and I think you mentioned Living Dolls along the way.
Yeah.
Jeez Louise, I did one week on that, and and it was the week they got canceled.
Oh, are you
Um,
kidding me?
I'm not. The, it was afternoon, it was just after lunch, and one of the producers walked in. We were rehearsing on stage, and they said, "Could we just have the regular cast, on stage for a moment?" And all the guest cast, we went outside, and, I think it was me. I said, "I think they're getting the axe in there."
Uh.
And pretty soon, one of the actresses walked by crying.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so there you go. I thought that series was gonna go, but that's
Ju
TV.
I revisited that during COVID. That was one of my COVID binges. It started streaming on one of the platforms
Ah,
that I use, one of the free ones, Crackle or Tubi or something. And so I was like, yeah, I really liked the show back then. We're 5 years post-COVID. What were some of your COVID binges?
murder shows, babe.
Like docs
Serial
or
serial
like
serial killer documentaries, man.
really?
Oh,
Wow.
yeah, yeah. I was totally, and I still am, into the mind of serial killers because it's fascinating.
Really?
Yeah, yeah, because it's something that doesn't have to do with comedy,
Yeah.
certainly, and it's just the inner workings of a warped mind. There was this
Yeah.
great series a couple of years ago, Mindhunter,
Uh-huh.
fantastic show, and I saw a blip on Facebook that they were gonna shoot a 3rd season, and I hope that they do, because it was so good, so original. I think it was Steven Soderbergh who directed these episodes, and it was so period and wonderful, and it really tapped into, its interviews in prisons and with
Yeah.
serial killers, um, and documentaries about serial killers. There was one on HBO, I think maybe it's a year ago now, about this, what they deem as the original serial killer, who was in Indiana, I think. Ed Gein was his
Okay.
name. Yeah. You, of
Plainfield,
course
right?
you, of course, would know that name. Horror,
Wisconsin, I think. Plainfield, Wisconsin, was that
call
right?
of horror that you are. Yeah, yeah, yeah. His story was really fascinating to me.
Yeah.
The Just what kind of a mind you have to, or how sick you are, uh,
Yeah.
for that stuff. So that's what I watched during the pandemic. I think, during the pandemic, I was watching Peaky Blinders. Fantastic show. Um, what else was I binging?
I relived my whole childhood and teen years during the
Uh,
pandemic. It was so fun.
you were for
Um,
comfort. Yeah.
yeah, like I said, I have all these DVDs, so I
Mhm.
pulled some out of the boxes that I haven't revisited in 10 or 15 years. So I rewatched all of Touched by an Angel.
My mother loved that show.
I know my grandma loved that show. My grandma was a huge influence on what I watched and love today. She is why I love horror. I saw
Yeah.
my first horror film at her house, um, when I was 8, and, as well as the shows. Dick Van Dyke, is a love, and so I binged all of Diagnosis Murder.
Wow, nice.
And the spinoff to Touched by an Angel, Promised Land with Gerald McCraney
Oh
and
my god.
Delta Burke, did that one, all of that one, and I had an office job at the time, so I was sent to work from home, so it was just on the TV and I'm
Yeah.
on the computer, and I would kill a whole, like, 10 episodes in one work day.
Yeah, I know, I know. I was it was like living in an airport. You never knew when
Yeah.
your flight was gonna leave, and
Uh-huh.
you would eat fried chicken one meal and pizza the next, and, stay up till 4 o'clock because there's no reason to get out of bed in the morning. It was a very strange time, and for
Yeah.
me, it was worth about 30 pounds.
I lost a lot of weight during the pandemic
Wow.
because the only thing I was consuming was Diet Cola,
Oh, okay.
either Dr. Pepper or Coke or Pepsi, or I think Tab was still around then, and I drank some of that because that's, again, nostalgia food,
Uh,
right?
yeah, exactly, exactly,
Though it was very expensive towards the end, so I didn't drink that a whole lot.
I
Bowls.
invested in voiceover work. I tried to do books for Audible and then discovered that I really couldn't make any money at it, and,
Mhm.
but I took, classes in Audacity and how to record myself at home and, you know, and so that's how well, I think I got an Ethernet cable so that my Wi-Fi wouldn't, flake out
Mhm.
when I was doing, dubs for Netflix at home. Um, so, yeah, it was a really well, I was more sequestered than I've ever been because 'cause I'm kind of a social animal, and my
Mm,
work has always been my
mhm.
social circle too, especially when you're working in the theater because 'cause you're seeing people frequently. So, yeah,
I
murder.
used to be, and now I'm just tired. Like, I think I was telling someone the other day, I said, "I think I'm burnt out." They're like, "On what?" I said, "On life." Like, I'm just exhausted, and I no matter how much, and this has been like this for years, and so it's like no matter how much rest I get or what I change, I can't, I don't feel good, and I'm just tired, and I've been to the doctor, and nothing's wrong with me. So, I think I'm just burnt out and tired, and so getting to, like, not wear pants or put on shoes or leave
Yeah,
was amazing. Now, 20 years ago, I would have gone nuts,
yeah,
but no, now all of a sudden, I'm being praised for the life I love already.
that's great.
So, but no, I lost a lot of weight during COVID because I was just like, "Great, I can drink my Diet Cola all day long." Yeah, and that was all I was consuming, and
No,
water.
wow. Oh my gosh.
I know, and I didn't say it was healthy.
Yeah, maybe that's responsible for some of the aches and pains, Summer.
I know. Well, it's my skater diet, okay?
Yeah, yeah, it's like the ballet diet.
Yes, minus the cigarettes. I stopped smoking when I moved to Chicago because it was very expensive here and it was very cheap in California, and I was like, "I am not paying that much money for
Oh,
that." And so
well, I'm glad you quit. I quit, 15 years ago myself.
yeah, so for me, it was 18 years ago, and I still miss it too. Crazy how that addiction works, right?
Yeah, I actually quit for 15 years and then took it up again.
Ew, why'd you do that?
Because I was at a Shakespeare festival with a bunch of 20-somethings who all had a death wish in New York City,
Right.
where you could smoke everywhere,
And it
except
was and it
outdoors.
was a social occasion then.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. If I wanted to, spend my breaks with anyone, I went down to the street
Mhm.
while they all smoked, and then I
Yep.
bummed one, then I bummed another one, and then I was bumming so many cigarettes, I was buying cigarettes for them to
Right.
replace the ones that I smoked, and then I said that this is just stupid. I'm gonna smoke this summer, and I'm gonna give it up again in the fall. It took, like, 6 or 7 times for me to quit because it's so available and so addictive.
Yeah,
I'm stoned after 3 drags on a cigarette. Yeah.
seriously. But the thing is, my brain misses it, my body doesn't. Like, when I'm around smoke, I cough,
Yeah,
but I still desire it.
I find it pretty repulsive. Yeah, the only time it smells good to me is right when somebody lights up, and
Mhm.
that was my favorite, flavor too. when it got too hot, or if someone comes in to a bar after smoking outside, I'm like, "Whoa,
Yeah.
dog,
Yeah. Yeah.
please don't speak loudly at me."
Well, it's on your clothes, so there's really nothing you can do, you just gotta walk away.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, so I don't miss that, I don't miss my walls being yellow or anything, but I miss the activity of it, and my brain misses it, but I don't like it.
Yeah.
Explain that to me, I don't understand. Anyway, to wrap this up, you mentioned a couple of times Palm Royale, that's a newer thing for you. Can you talk about that? Tell our audiences about that.
I just wrapped season 2. I was in 6 of the 10 episodes of both seasons. It's on Apple TV. It stars Kristen Wiig, Allison Janney, Laura Dern, and some woman named Carol Burnett. I don't know if she was around during your childhood or not. All wonderful women, and some surprise guest stars as well this season. And yeah, I'll certainly come back, when season 2 drops. But in the meantime, folks can, you know what? Just get a free preview of Apple TV, binge all 10 hours, of which you'll see me in 6 of them, singing in one, playing bagpipes in another,
What?
and
What?
being an auctioneer. And yeah, so yeah, it's a wonderful, wonderful show. It's set in 1969 in Palm Beach, Florida.
Oh,
So it's beautiful to look at. It's hilarious. And Kristen Wiig's wonderful. The music is amazing. Jeff Toyne won an Emmy for his main title for the show. Um, it's just it's a breath of fresh air to be on, because it's so pleasant. Everybody's really nice. There's no toxic behavior. It's all great.
oh, that's
So
amazing.
so there's that. And I was on Night Court again
Yeah.
recently after a 34-year gap, which was wild. I played the same character I played 34 years ago.
How crazy is that?
Yeah, yeah. I had my manager kind of knock on their door and say, he was pretty memorable back in the day. Yeah. So uh, there's that. But I'd love to come back and talk with you some more, especially
Amazing. Oh
about
my
performing
gosh.
stuff.
But now it's time to sign off. So again, Wes, thank you so much for coming and talking to me. Can't wait to have you back and talk about all the other things that you've done in the theater and on screen, because this has been so amazing for me. Thank you so much.
Well, you're more than welcome. And if any of your viewers, listeners, want a personal message from me, they can go to Cameo and find me there.
Ooh.
There you go. Mother's Day is coming up next week.
Mother's Days, birthdays, pep talks, shout outs, all
Yeah,
the things,
yeah.
right?
I mean, I usually do the wallet guy thing for folks, but certainly I can do the caterpillar.
You can do Caterpillar. Do
I'll
you
even
get any
say you
other
can cut off my
requests?
nose if they want.
It's like, please just tell me that you hope you're going to courtroom B
Yeah.
or whatever. Was that the line or something in the beginning? I don't remember. Um,
So this is a very strict toad.
you're like, God, I hope so. I hope I get 10 years.
Yeah, yeah.
Wes, thank you so much. I appreciate everything. Thank you for coming in and talking to me.
You bet, Summer. Thanks for having me. We'll see
Bye
you next
bye.
time.